Welcome to 15-Minute Discourse. We're diving into technology today. You've given us some really interesting sources like Wikipedia entries on big tech and disruptive innovation, even a piece on environmental technology. So it seems you want to understand not just the big players in tech right now, but also how tech evolves, disrupts industries, and offers solutions to environmental challenges.
Yeah, I think you've summarized that perfectly.
So should we start with those big companies, those giants in the room?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Wikipedia article on big tech shows how amazingly companies like Alphabet have grown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Google's parent company, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it also mentions Microsoft and Amazon. And in 2020 alone, get this,
Mm-hmm.
the top 7 tech companies added $3.4 trillion in value.
Yeah, it's an amazing figure. Really shows their economic power. But maybe even more interesting is how these companies have become such a part of our lives. I mean, think about it. Google shapes how we get information. Amazon influences our shopping habits, and Microsoft, well, they kind of define the PC era.
It's true. Their products and services are, well, they're everywhere. But the Wikipedia article also mentions a lot of controversies around these companies, like antitrust efforts, accusations of censorship, and that's with examples like Google in China, Meta in Russia, and Facebook in India. And there's even concerns about them becoming monopolies. It seems like the bigger they get, the more they're scrutinized.
Yeah, and that tension is really at the core of the whole big tech debate, because on the one hand, they're so innovative and they've really brought benefits to so many people.
Right.
But their size and influence definitely raise concerns about fair competition, data privacy, and even the potential for them to misuse their power.
Exactly. And the article on disruptive innovation suggests that this rapid growth and influence they have, it comes from their ability to disrupt existing industries. It's not just offering something new. It's about changing the rules of the game.
Right. Yeah. And Clayton Christensen, who actually came up with the term disruptive innovation, he argued that these disruptions, well, they often come from smaller players, the ones that target the kind of overlooked market segments with simpler, more affordable products.
So like how personal computers ended up replacing mini computers.
Exactly.
The article uses that as an example of low-end disruption,
Right.
where a cheaper product kind of gradually moves up market as it gets better.
Right, right. It's like the classic way to start small and disrupt from below.
Yeah.
And then you have that new market disruption where a product creates a whole new market segment. So think about mobile phones. They disrupted car phones, MP3 players, cameras, everything. And now they're a whole new category of devices.
And our source material gives some great examples of how this works in the real world, like Wikipedia's impact on encyclopedias.
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect example. It disrupted not only printed encyclopedias like the Britannica, but also digital ones like Microsoft's Encarta, going from these big, expensive encyclopedias, sometimes $1,000, to a free online platform that's always being updated. That's a massive shift.
It's a really great example of how technology can make information accessible to everyone.
Absolutely.
And we see this similar pattern in how digital music rose, undermining traditional music distribution and, well, streaming video basically put those video rental stores, Blockbuster, out of business.
Yeah.
They were everywhere.
These are all examples of how technology evolves over time.
Yeah.
I mean, what was once cutting edge eventually becomes, well, obsolete as new innovations come along. This constant cycle of disruption and reinvention.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see how that cycle plays out at different levels of technology. We've talked about the complex things like AI and machine learning, but, the article on environmental tech highlights that even simpler technologies can have a huge impact on people's lives. Just basic water filtration systems.
Right. That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of the latest gadgets and innovations, but sometimes the most impactful technologies are, well, they're the ones that solve basic human needs in a simple and affordable way.
Exactly.
Those simpler technologies are often the foundation for more complex innovations.
True.
I mean, think about how basic water filtration systems led to those desalination plants. Now they're helping with water scarcity in dry areas. So it's not just about high tech versus low tech. It's about understanding how technology evolves and how those different levels of sophistication can work together. They can even complement each other.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And as we move forward, we have to think about the impact of all these different levels of technology on society, the economy, and the environment.
Absolutely. And speaking of the environment, how about we shift our focus now to how technology is tackling those environmental challenges? That environmental technology article dives into some innovations in water and air purification and even solid waste management.
Yeah. Let's start with water purification. Clean drinking water is absolutely essential, and technology is key to making sure it's available. The article highlights all kinds of technologies, from simple filtration to remove sediment and impurities to more advanced desalination plants. They can actually convert seawater into fresh water.
Desalination that's really interesting, almost like something out of science fiction, creating fresh water from, well, from salt water.
It's pretty incredible, especially for areas where water is really scarce.
Mhm.
But it does use a lot of energy, so there's a lot of research going on to make it more efficient and more sustainable.
That makes sense. What about air purification? The article mentions mechanical filtration that uses filters to trap particles, and something called photocatalytic oxidation
Mm.
that uses a catalyst and UV light to break down pollutants. Are these technologies are they actually effective in fighting air pollution?
They are, yeah. They're becoming super important, especially in cities where air pollution is a real health risk. Mechanical filtration it's used everywhere, in homes, buildings to clean the air inside. And photocatalytic oxidation, that shows promise for tackling the pollution outside, because it can break down those harmful gases and particles.
Wow. It's amazing that we can actually like scrub the air clean using technology. So let's move on to solid waste management. We produce so much garbage. What kind of technologies are out there to manage it?
Well, landfills are still pretty common, but there's a real focus on reducing waste through things like recycling and composting. And the article mentions some cool advancements in e-waste recycling.
Ooh, e-waste recycling. I've always wondered about that. What happens to all our old phones and computers, all those electronic devices? Don't they contain valuable materials?
They do, yeah. E-waste is a great source of precious metals and other things that can be reused. The old ways of doing it involved manually taking them apart, which was dangerous. But now, new technologies are using automation and better sorting to make e-waste recycling safer and more efficient.
So it's not just about throwing stuff away anymore. It's about thinking about, the entire life of a product.
Exactly.
And that leads us to renewable energy. It's a topic that's everywhere now, and for good reason. The article you sent talks about different renewable energy technologies, things like wind power, hydropower, solar energy, geothermal, and biomass energy.
Yeah. Moving towards sustainable energy sources is really important to fight climate change. Each technology has its own pluses and minuses, and they all help reduce our reliance on fossil fuels.
Solar power seems to be, well, it's really gaining ground. The article says that in 2023, solar energy produced over 5.5% of the world's electricity. That's a lot. And it seems like it's going to keep growing.
It is. The cost of solar panels has gone down a lot, making it much more affordable. We're seeing more and more rooftop solar, and those big solar farms are popping up all over the place.
It's amazing how quickly it's growing. But the article also stresses the importance of just using less energy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about generating more, it's about conservation.
Right. Energy conservation it's a big part of reducing our impact on the environment. Simple things like using energy-efficient appliances,
Right.
driving less, being more aware of our energy use at home, at work. It all adds up.
Now it's a two-part thing, switching to renewables and using less energy overall. And that brings us to the last topic in this section of our deep dive, sustainable agriculture. The article defines it as, well, farming practices that protect the environment, while still making sure there's enough food for everyone, which is really important with the world's population growing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Sustainable agriculture is about producing food without damaging the environment or using up all the natural resources. And the article gives some fascinating examples of how technology is being used to do that.
Could you give us some examples, like what kind of innovations are happening?
So one is precision agriculture, where farmers use sensors and data to figure out how to use resources better. Like
Yeah.
they can tailor irrigation, fertilization, and pest control to just the areas that need it. That reduces waste and it's better for the environment.
Yeah.
And then you have vertical farming, which is really cool, where crops are grown in these stacked layers, like indoors under artificial lights.
Vertical farming, it sounds so futuristic. I've seen pictures of like skyscrapers full of crops.
Yeah.
It's like something straight out of a movie.
Yeah. It's a clever way to use space efficiently,
Yeah.
especially in cities where land is limited. And then there's biotechnology, which is used to develop drought-resistant crops and even crops that are pest-resistant. So you need less water and less pesticides.
It's amazing how technology is changing agriculture,
Mm.
making it more sustainable.
It really is. It shows how creative humans are and how technology can help us solve some of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, it shows how technology can be used in so many ways. I mean, we've talked about how it's changing industries, dealing with environmental issues, meeting basic needs, and it's all connected to this idea of technological evolution.
It is. It's something we've been talking about all along. This idea that, what's cutting edge today becomes, well, normal and then eventually outdated as newer innovations come along. Exactly. It's like this constant cycle,
Yeah.
advancement and then disruption. And what's really interesting is how this happens at all these different levels of technology. I mean, we've talked about really complex stuff like artificial intelligence, but then we also talked about simpler technologies like water filtration.
And they're not necessarily separate. It seems like they coexist and even, work together.
Yeah, for sure. Think about the car industry. The internal combustion engine, that was huge, right? A high technology back then, but over time it became pretty standard, almost a low technology. But now with electric cars and self-driving cars, it's becoming high tech all over again.
It's like this loop,
Mm-hmm.
where things are refined, reimagined, and then disrupted by something new.
Yeah.
And this reminds us of disruptive innovation. The article pointed out how these disruptions often start with simpler technologies, the ones that are easier to get, and they cater to a specific need or a niche market.
Yeah. Clayton Christensen, he said that these smaller players can start to gain ground and challenge the bigger established technologies. It's creative destruction. It drives progress, but it does create winners and losers along the way.
That makes me think, are there any downsides to this constant disruption? Does it always mean progress? Or are there times when it could be, a bad thing?
It's a good question. While disruption often has benefits, it can also lead to job losses, economic inequality, and even ethical issues.
Like in manufacturing, we've seen automation replace workers.
Right.
And as AI gets more sophisticated, there are worries about even more jobs being lost.
I understand that concern. As technology advances, we need to think about the social and economic impact. We need to make sure the benefits are shared fairly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about getting the newest thing. It's about understanding the bigger picture. And, it's important to remember, not all advancements are the same. Some have a much bigger impact than others.
Right. Some are truly transformative. They change how we live, work, interact with the world, while others are more like improvements or refinements to what we already have.
Like there's a range of impact.
Yeah.
From the ones that revolutionize whole industries to the ones that just make things a little easier.
And it's hard to predict which ones will have the biggest impact in the long run. Some that seem groundbreaking at first, they might fizzle out. And others that seem small, they might end up having huge consequences.
Like history's full of examples.
Yeah.
For every big success, there are tons that failed. What makes a technology succeed or fail?
Well, it's complicated. It's a mix of things. Can it actually work? Is there demand for it? Do people accept it? And even timing matters. Sometimes the technology is just ahead of its time. Maybe the infrastructure isn't there yet or people aren't ready for it.
Like the internet. It took decades for it to go from something just researchers used to, well, what it is today.
Right, and now we can't imagine life without it.
It's changed everything. Communication, business, entertainment. It shows the power of technology and how much potential there is.
It does.
If you like these deep dives into technology, don't forget to like and subscribe to 15-Minute Discourse. We have many more.
Definitely. And as we keep talking, how about we focus on one example, artificial intelligence or AI. It's a hot topic right now, and for good reason. It seems like AI is going to change everything from healthcare and transportation to finance and entertainment, but it also brings up a lot of questions and concerns.
Yeah. AI is powerful.
Yeah.
It has the potential to solve complex problems, improve our lives in so many ways, but it could also be misused or have, unintended consequences.
Right.
One of the biggest concerns I hear is about AI taking jobs. As AI gets smarter, it can do things we thought only humans could do.
That's definitely a valid concern. Automation has already affected certain industries, and AI will likely speed that up.
Yep.
But it's important to remember that AI can also create new jobs, new industries even.
Like, I've read about how it's being used to develop new medicines, design personalized treatments, even assist with surgeries, things that wouldn't be possible without it.
Exactly. AI isn't just about replacing humans. It's about working with humans to achieve things we couldn't do alone.
It's a reminder that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. We have to make sure we develop, and use it responsibly and ethically.
I totally agree. We need to talk openly and honestly about the potential benefits and risks of AI and work together to ensure it leads to a better future for everyone.
And that brings us to another important aspect, its impact on society as a whole. AI systems learn from huge amounts of data, and that data can reflect existing biases and inequalities.
That's a great point. If we aren't careful, AI systems can make those biases worse, leading to unfair outcomes.
I've seen cases where AI used in hiring or loan applications ended up discriminating against certain groups. That's a serious problem. We need more transparency and accountability in how AI is developed and used.
We need to make sure AI systems are designed and trained fairly, without bias. That means carefully choosing the data and constantly monitoring them to make sure they're not perpetuating harmful biases.
It's a tough challenge, but it's one we have to face if we want AI to be a force for good.
And it's not just about technical fixes, it's also about creating a culture of responsibility and ethical awareness among those who build and use AI.
Definitely. We need to make sure AI aligns with our values and goals as a society.
And speaking of values, AI isn't just a neutral technology. It reflects the values of its creators.
That's deep. The choices we make about how we develop and use AI will shape what kind of society we build.
It's a reminder that we have a responsibility to steer AI in a direction that benefits all of humanity.
It's a lot to consider. And we've only just started to explore this complex and rapidly changing field.
Yeah, it really makes you think. But before we get, too far into the future, maybe we should bring it back to the present for a minute. Thinking about all these different technologies, one thing that struck me is how they often, they build on each other.
That's a key point. Technological advancement, it's rarely a straight line. It's more like a web of interconnected innovations.
Yeah.
Every new thing builds on what came before.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
remember how we were talking about those basic water filtration systems?
Yeah.
They led to the more advanced desalination plants, or how the internal combustion engine eventually led to, electric vehicles and self-driving cars.
And it happens everywhere. Like, think about how computing power has helped artificial intelligence grow, or how new materials have led to more efficient solar panels.
Right. It's like each new breakthrough opens up possibilities in areas you wouldn't even expect. It's a pretty amazing cycle of progress. And it's getting faster. The pace of change is, it's faster than ever, which is exciting, but also makes it hard to keep up.
I know what you mean. It feels like every day there's a new gadget, a new app, a new platform. It's hard to make sense of it all.
And that's where critical thinking is important. We don't just accept every new technology, right? It's about understanding what it can do, what the risks are, and if it fits with our values.
Which brings us back to something we've talked about a lot today. Using technology responsibly, whether it's big tech, AI, or even, water filtration, we have to consider the impact these technologies have on society and the environment.
You got it. Technology is powerful, and like anything powerful, it can be used in good ways or bad ways. We need to make sure we use it wisely.
I totally agree. We need to be open and honest about what could happen as technology advances and work together to make sure it helps humanity and the planet.
And everyone needs to be part of that conversation. Scientists, engineers, ethicists, policymakers, even everyday people.
That's a great point. Technology affects all of us, so we should all have a say in how it's developed and used.
Right. And it's not just about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about using technology to solve the big problems we're facing, like climate change, poverty, disease.
Absolutely. Technology can be a force for good. We've seen that today. From renewable energy to sustainable agriculture.
Exactly. And as we keep innovating, as we explore new things, it's important to remember that technology is a tool for human progress.
Well said. We've covered a lot today. Big tech, disruptive innovation, environmental technology, artificial intelligence. A lot to think about.
It has been fascinating, and I hope our listeners got some new insights, maybe some new questions too.
I hope so. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to check out other episodes of 15-Minute Discourse. We cover lots of different topics, always trying to bring you interesting and insightful conversation.
There's always more to learn.
That's for sure. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. As technology keeps changing, faster than ever, what role do you see yourself playing in shaping its future? What can you do to make sure it's used to create a world that's more just, more sustainable, more equitable? Something to think about.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
Thanks for joining us on 15-Minute Discourse.